hear you though. No, your audio is not going through.
How
Thank
about
you,
now?
Tom. He said, "Thank you, Tom."
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for saying that. Okay, there's details. There's like these little details you got to remember when you do this kind of thing. And one of the main details is the on button on all your devices.
Yeah, the checklist
That's
starts with, "Is it
the one I
on?"
missed. Yeah, it's the one I missed. I do have a checklist right over there on the table.
Yeah,
The one I miss is the most obvious. So this is like being a detail-oriented person, I go straight to the most technical thing I can think of because that
yeah,
must be what I missed.
yeah,
But it's not.
yeah.
It's always the
Are
obvious.
you a little stiff in your lower back? Well, certainly you must have cancer.
Yeah, you don't just go to drinking more water. Yeah,
Yeah,
you don't
start
just
working
go to
on
the
that
simple
cancer
thing.
diagnosis.
Right. Why am I like that, man? I automatically jump to the most complex possible answer.
Yeah. We were talking about what Joe should paint or what we should talk about, right? Because we're like, we're gonna hang out with all you guys, and we want to like have some sort of idea of what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
One of the
We
ideas
don't have an agenda.
that we had is moving from. I'm just gonna throw a couple of things out there and see what happens. We're moving from a sense of obligation to a sense of gratitude for your work. So here it is. It's Saturday morning. It's bright and early. You didn't sleep in. I didn't sleep in, but we both had a hard week. So why did we get here early and do this? Well, because we've reframed it from being an obligation to an opportunity, and that makes it fun to do. So, if your work week sucks, if painting feels out like a mountain to climb, it's perhaps in your brain you're conceiving of it as an obligation when at the exact same time it's a wonderful opportunity. And so that's a thing that's been on my mind is all week I've been showing up to work like this expletive obligation of mine.
Reframing the
when I should be saying this expletive opportunity of mine.
Yeah, nice.
Well,
so my
this
week
coffee
was
here is taking me from obligation to opportunity. It's my little vehicle. It's going to drive me there.
The coffee. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. my week was actually pretty hunky dory. I didn't have a hard week. So that was very poetically stated. I like the reframing.
Man. He's doing it right.
Well, I just can't brag about perseverance on this particular week. I've had a few things go not as I would dream of, but it's still been pretty good.
Yeah.
Let me fix that camera. I was at Lake Powell. Man, that was nice. Lake Powell. That is the destination for camping in Arizona. Let me tell you. It was a beautiful place.
So we're just getting the camera lined up here so you can perceive.
Yep. I gotta get the camera. I came in early this morning and missed some of the important details. So we did take one. We tried the first live stream, and I didn't have the right camera hooked up. I also didn't have my microphone on, so probably no one heard what was going on. So apologies to everyone.
Yeah. Well, there's a time for. Here's another thing we were thinking about talking about is polish. There's a time for lo-fi and there's a time for polish. And if you're watching a live Mural Joe stream, you're probably not so bent on the need for polish because
yeah, that's not how they go.
This is about as raw of a production as you're ever gonna see here.
It's raw. Yeah, but we have a good time. Yeah. Okay, so I think it would be fun to show a little bit of Ben's work on this video while I'm dreaming of something. Yeah. So I'm gonna get going with the painting. If anybody has ideas, throw them my way. I'd love to hear. Just shoot them out in the live chat. Do that. I'm gonna just start putting some paint on the canvas. My favorite 4 colors. I'm starting with I just call these my favorite 4 because they're what I always start with. So if you look at my tray down here, I found that in landscapes, I rarely need the color blue. It's not that often that I actually need a intensely blue sky, and black and white look pretty blue when they're against orange. So I just have orange, yellow. I get all of my reddish orange colors with just this orange, white, and black. That gets, like, in nature, there's not a lot of the bright primaries. So this gets everything: the green trees, the brown dirt, the reflection on the water, all the common stuff to landscapes is with these four. So it's kind of fun to just whip something out with those and then add bright colors later. So that's what I'm going to be doing, just to preface my
well, Joe, Camila's taking the bait here. She said she's curious to see some work.
Okay, with like what kind of work are we talking?
Some of my work.
Ah, yeah, we should see that. Yeah, we should check that out.
It did occur to us last week that I do a lot of talking, and I posit a lot of positions, make a lot of statements about things, and without any sort of understanding about this dude that's doing all this talking instead of Joe.
Who is this guy? Well, because it's hard for me to keep
this guy is doing a lot of talking and he's standing on nothing. He doesn't even have a canvas. I wish he'd shut up. Joe would do more talking.
Yeah, but he does have a canvas. Yeah, you have very developed opinions. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But it's justified. There's a big reason you have developed opinions, because
I'm a very developed artist as well. So the opinions experience.
That's it. Yeah, we're gonna look at some of that. All right, let me show you where we're going with the painting, and then if this sparks any imagination later, let me try to give everybody something to run with, just a starting point, and then it's open to suggestion. I saw a movie scene. We were watching that movie with dinosaurs. There's like a Pixar film, or it's a cartoon movie with some dinosaurs, and this long-necked dinosaur has to bring home this little human baby boy, and there's this scene where I don't know what it's called, but I saw a scene in it that I was like, oh, that's pretty. I should do something like that with clouds. I'm going to do a layer of clouds. That's what I'm working on right now. So I'm going to start with just black and white, and I'm just going to do some puffy clouds going way back, because I thought it'd be cool to have a super simple environment with just a interesting. I guess what sparked my imagination was the idea of a very simple environment with that still feels beautiful because of what it does for your imagination. I guess that's where I'm going with it. You know what I mean? Like a distant expanse of clouds is so simple, but what it does for your imagination, it's like, oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, so that's the kind of vibe I'm gonna shoot for. Yeah, I'm gonna start with some clouds. It's always a safe bet starting with clouds.
Clouds. I always imagine myself like being in the midst of them. Like if it was like a room full of pillows.
Yeah.
I'm just like flopping around in the clouds, throwing them every which way.
Yeah.
Tom loves your clouds and your water. So
all right, thanks. Okay, cool. We're gonna do some clouds today. Now this is different. I'm doing them with.
Curious, have you ever done any Impressionist painting classes or any style of Impressionism? Is that
actually by request a few live streams ago? If you look through, you have to specifically search the live streams on the Mural Joe channel. We by request we did a Monet style we didn't copy the painting, copied the Monet style, and I was diving into my taking my best shot at it. Let's just call it that. My interpretation of Impressionism is in that live stream. That's it. That's the material I've got on Impressionism, other than mentioning it from time to time across many videos. It's an interesting topic because I think everything is Impressionism. I think every visual art form ends up being Impressionism.
Because it's being a human if not being a filter of an impression that the universe is making. We are. Oh my goodness, Joe.
it's so deep. What you just said is I need more coffee to even take it in, brother.
I just realized.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
We
What
are
is?
life making an impression on itself.
Whoa, that's pretty good. Life making I don't get it. You're gonna have to explain it. But we got time. Explain it. Let me know what's on your mind.
See, the thing is, like, we're expressions of life, right? Like, life gets together with other life and makes more life, and then bloop, there's Joe. I'm alive.
Okay.
You know?
Yep. I follow you that far for sure.
So,
and that's a miracle.
Life at work, making more life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
that's
with
true.
the new life, you impress your presence upon the world, right?
You do. Oh, I see. So you're taking, yeah, I got you. I got you. So when you're talking impressionism, you're really dialing in. You're focusing
making an impression on someone, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, impressionism is so in visual art. You know, they kind of reserve
like
that.
You're the expression of life. You know, you're the way that it sees itself.
Yeah,
the human being is life seeing itself and communicating that impression.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Now I see where you're going with it. Well, so in visual art, an impression is like minimizing the minimized work to do only what it takes to give the impression, and then people call it impressionism because it's tried to take out the other elements and only leave the impression, you know, like like leave out the details that make it undeniable, right? So like an impressionistic picture of a person could perhaps get interpreted as something besides a person, but you know, it's just an impression, so it's in that category.
Well, you know, there's everything you're going to experience in your life is going to be your impression, you know.
My impression, so, the impression I get, yeah, you use that phrase a lot.
So it's like you're not going to be able to escape. You know, impressionism is really, I think, just like running with that notion that you see things in a you kind of way. So what if the you kind of way of seeing things was dramatically different than what many other people saw things as, right? So then that's called impressionism because it embraces the uniqueness of the way an individual might see things apart from, you know.
Right.
So it's like
right now I only have an impression of these clouds, you know, just on the topic. Sorry to interrupt there, but
no,
you know,
interrupt.
This is just an impression of clouds, you know, and so I feel like even if I'm trying to point myself toward looking more realistic, I end up on impressionism. I end up there, you know. It's just like some level of impressionism like that. It's making an impression. Yeah, and you're right. You know, we want to make an impression where we go. We're like
wax philosophical, but it does help me to like understand what's real and true if I see it happening all over the place.
Yeah.
Across mediums. So this concept of like we see things in an us kind of way and everyone else sees things in a them kind of way, you know.
Yeah.
You know, the painter can't escape that. The photographer can't escape that. You know, you can't escape the fact that you are both liberated by senses and the ability to perceive, but you're also confined to those senses and that ability to perceive. So you have a joy in embracing it and expressing and doing your own thing, but there's also quite a joy in seeing what someone else's view looks like, you know.
Yeah, you gotta learn to appreciate that one. You know, that definitely has not been my story, is appreciating other people's views all my life. Definitely had to work on that part.
Well, you know, it's like if you talk about impressionism, someone say somebody's going to do a caricature of you, You know, they're gonna do an impression of Joe, and they sit you down at a fair.
That's
and
true.
like, hey,
yeah.
I'm gonna do a caricature of Joe, and you're like, oh, sweet, yeah. Let me see what your perspective of me looks like.
Yeah, that's essentially what a portrait is. Yeah.
And then they whip it together, you know, and you've got like a double chin and an eyeball coming out of your Adam's apple, and it's like, oh, I don't
look like that. Yeah. I don't look
it's
like
all
that.
playing games, feeling someone else's perspective until it challenges your own.
It does. Is my nose that big? Come on. Yeah. It is like that. Yeah.
Hey, Coral thinks this looks like a very rough surface that you're painting on.
It is. It's pretty rough. This is like 20 paintings piled on top of each other. It is indeed. Yeah, because I just keep painting over. This was last week's live stream. You know, I paint better if the plan is not to save it. There's something I preach over and over is paint on garbage over and over again, because that repetition, you know, is that was my path to understanding. I don't want to say mastering, because I don't feel like I'm mastered, but my path to being able to do what I want to do with the brush, let's just put it that way, was practicing on trash, to do experiments with all of those supposed impressions of the way things work. You know, artists can be annoying, like, you know, like, you know, we've been with different groups. It came up last week, and no hard feelings on that conversation last week at all. You know, we're here to sort things out like this, but it can be annoying when we kind of get too excited about our own philosophical thoughts. But there's this process we need a little bit of grace to go through this process of voicing it, because this is how we find the patterns that give us the tools. You know, we're just looking for those tools. Like you were saying earlier, we're looking for that repeatable pattern and a tool that can give it to us. And you're always trying to frame like what stuff means and how it works. And talking philosophically is trying to do that exact thing, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You know, it's just so easy to get mired in the details. It's so easy to just get bogged down in, but this doesn't line up with this, and this is different than that, and how does this work?
Yeah.
Well, that can't possibly be the case.
Right.
Look at this and that. There's conflict, and it's just like the world is very complex. You know, there's a lot going on, and you can get into as much detail as you want, but that tends to exhaust my brain, and so. I guess it's just my tendency. I'm just being reflective and analytical. It helps me if I can simplify, if I can take things down to just concepts, to be expressed in a sentence, and then reopen it back up and see through that framing a situation. You know, because I guess I'm just explaining why that happens. Why does it get so big and philosophical all the time? It's just because I'm trying to understand something complicated by being reductive. Until the reduced version makes clear sense and is true and reliable, then I can start to add back into that complexities until it breaks. And then you run into nuance and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I think we've always been this way as a family, as brothers. We've had this bent, and it's, I think one of the big challenges has been to adapt that nature to ordinary society, because there's only so much that your friends and family can handle. They're like,
handle it. Yeah, it's exhausting.
They're like, dude, you're being exhausting, you know. So you do got to be sensitive. It is important to be sensitive to that, or you just lose relationships. You know, like, dude, we can't hang out with that guy. But you know, we've adapted, we've changed along the way, I think, as people with an extreme philosophical bent.
Well, you know, Joe, I've accepted myself, and if there's any weirdos out there in this crowd too, because you're an artist or you're emotional or whatever, that's how I am too. That's how Joe is too.
Yeah,
and I just tell myself this: if you're gonna be extraordinary, you're gonna have to do extraordinary things. You know, like if you're gonna or if you're going to do extraordinary things, you're going to have to be weird. You know,
That's true. You got it. Yeah, right. Unusual.
You're going to have to be
can
uncommon. You know, you're going to have to be
Right.
different in order to do anything that's remarkable. You know?
Well, let me speak to that point before you go
Sure,
on
sure.
too far. It's a good point. So in a practical sense, I get questioned a lot about what is the trick to making a cloud look nice. They're like, oh, you just paint and quickly a cloud comes to shape. You know, yeah, right. And so people are looking for. I don't want to be insulting, but it sounds to me like people are kind of looking for the trick. Like, what's the trick to it? And it's something that has developed over a lifetime of this exact process of me being weird and obsessing over the nuances and the actual feelings I get from looking at a cloud. So I end up obsessing over that, for lack of a better word, obsessing over it. But really, I'll just say maybe a better term is hyper focused on. I like that cloud so much. Why do I like it so much? I want to create that cloud. How am I going to create it? And we're just talking like hours and hours and hours of my head in that space. And it's a similar nature that bends toward the philosophical, because it's trying to dig deep into the mechanics of why I'm perceiving this thing and liking it. Because anyone can do a puffy cloud shape, but it doesn't often come out with that same feel. And feelings are like a really philosophical topic. It's hard to just analytically put them into clear categories and how they work and all that. You know what I mean? It's like a mysterious
if you're talking
topic.
about it, you know, if you're trying to like demystify art, you're trying to
that's a good
you're
word.
End up incorporating psychology.
Right. It finds its way
and behaves, and so
that's a good description. Yeah, you're going to end up incorporating it.
Psychology is a young science, they call it, because it's only recently been kind of explored and accepted in culture as scientific at all. And so that's also why this is so murky to define and find things for, because it's young science as to why people think and feel and do the things they do. But anyways, yeah, to step back a second, you know, Mavis, I think you're right here. I was touching on what you explained here. She says, sounds like you're talking about the level of awareness about others, and the higher level allows us to see others more clearly without our own projections on them. Yeah, that is valuable to do. Get yourself out of the way so that you can see through someone else's experience.
Yeah. But, you know, I just got to be honest and say that's extremely hard.
It's impossible, I would say.
Let's just settle on impossible. That's good. I like where that took.
Not be yourself. You're going to somehow free yourself of your ego, of your experience.
But we have, okay, but where's the balance where we actually have hope that,
exactly. Yeah, reality is not in extremes. It's in middle.
Yeah, it's like we're pushing. You know, I find myself pushing toward my goals, never reaching them, but feeling fortunate at the results that's come out in the process of pushing toward them. You know.
Yeah.
It's kind of
And then Camila, she says, you know, you don't have to be weird. You just have to stand out from the crowd doing something different.
Oh,
you know,
well, that's a good point.
Weird in my usage of it doesn't imply something being wrong with you, something being deficient, something being off. You know, I'm not talking about weird like that. I'm talking about weird in the extraordinary sense, it being uncommon, you know.
Yeah.
Like
right.
You know, if you got a dozen eggs and, you know, 11 of them are one shade and then the 12th one is a slightly different shade, well, that's a weird egg. You know what I mean? That's all.
Yeah, that one's weird. Well, yeah, you can use that word very loosely, and such is language. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely
But
can
you
have.
know, like I'm not gonna say that like if you're not messed up in the head, well then you got no chance at making good art.
Right.
Sorry.
That's not. Yeah, I hear you. That's not what you're trying to say. No,
Yeah,
but you are.
level-balanced people that can access their strangeness make
Yeah.
all the time.
Well, perhaps another way to say it was, is that you can't expect to have different results if you're not different.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, there you go. Yeah, same input means same output. You know.
Yeah. And I remember at a young age examining from the outside what I wanted to be, and I was looking at the classes of people in school, the jocks, the ones that were cooler, the ones that weren't, and looking at them, and there's always a absence of where I belonged there, and I was like, oh, I just those categories really aren't what I feel. So I went home and spent hours and hours just escaping to my own little world, trying to get secure with who I am, what I like, and so nature and art was my happy place, and that was called weird. Maybe on a few occasions I was accused of being weird, but I think mostly I was just kind of in my own social group, and that's probably the reality of it.
I was sitting in a therapist's office one time shortly after moving to Los Angeles. I was in a bad way and was trying to make heads or tails of myself. What am I doing in life, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sitting there in front of this guy, and this guy, this is in downtown Los Angeles. And so the guy has seen a lot of entertainment industry type folks, a lot of actors and screenwriters and directors and producers and things, and all these sorts of trades that find opportunity out in this neck of the woods. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I just feel so weak and I don't have what it takes. I'm like, I've given up everything to be out here, and now I have all these like imposter syndrome and feeling of self-doubt and all this.
Those are very bad feelings.
And I'm just like crushed under this weight of insignificance,
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this must be evidence that like, I'm making a wrong turn here. And he's like, no, everybody feels that way, And I was
he just told you real plain like that?
Yeah.
He just told you very
just. He's like, there's celebrities in here that just sit here, writhing in insecurity.
Yeah, just like
these. And then it occurred to me, the reason I say this, it occurred to me that
this is good. I like this.
I like this story. All across the spectrum in the creative arts.
Yeah.
They're often all just sensitive, insecure, emotional, uncertain human beings, like it's that fixate on beauty, that are curious about human behavior, right? These are just people like you and I that just introduced grit and discipline and like drive and determination. But that weirdness, that like sort of like I feel insecure because I notice I'm different, in this or that way from my immediate surroundings.
Right.
That's actually your asset. That's your power. That's your juice,
Yeah, it's like where the hit songs come
from.
Quit
trying to be the same as the crowd.
Here's something I can feel. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Jules says something interesting here. Says the trick is playing until you like it. And I fully agree that
you're saying the artist Jewel? Oh, you're saying like someone commenting.
In the comments, yeah.
Jules, man, when you said that, the context shifted in my brain. I was like thinking like the
Jules.
I was thinking the music artist Jules.
I have this framed on my wall. Jules says.
You know why my mind instantly went to Jewel, though, song, the music artist, like the 90s music artist, is because
Jules.
Yeah, I got it. I was thinking of her song, I'm sensitive and I'd like to stay that way. That's a song by the artist Jewel.
There you go.
Anyway, my mind just went there instantly.
Yeah, man, but being playful, you want to play with it, like.
Okay, yeah, that's good. I like that.
What I'm doing right now. Like you don't hear Joe like trying to figure out how to do this or that, or like what should I paint? Where should I put this
Yeah.
at? Like he doesn't care. He's just playing around.
I am, but okay. So to discuss the flip side of that, it's very, I see it a lot. You know, like Bob Ross says, there are no mistakes here, just happy accidents. Well, it's very frustrating when you're trying to play, but it doesn't feel like playing. It feels like failing, and people don't like that feeling. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so they're like looking for, okay, how can I actually feel like I'm accomplishing something? Like they're not hitting that sweet spot where it feels like you're creating something because they're always experience it not coming out as intended, and it's never hitting like it looks good. You know, it's just to put it plainly.
Coral are also bringing up that sense of rejection, that deep it doesn't feel good rejection, you know.
As
you're working, it's hard to be playful if you're just like, oh, this is going to get me rejected, this is going to get me isolated.
And you know, I've experienced that with jobs. I'm trying to make a good picture, and then I had enough experiences where I thought it was good, but my customer was like, that's not what I asked for. And you know, that is that feeling of rejection for sure. Or like, I think I'm making great progress and someone walks by and says, so what's that supposed to be? You know, you get that a lot when you're painting in public places. I've had to redo a whole wall murals because it didn't fit what the customer wanted. And then I'm slaving over it. Well, I said that I could do this. I felt like I could nail it, but here I am on this job losing money and time, and I'm not nailing it. And I don't have anybody to come in and save the day for me. It's just up to me. That's very discouraging. My point is, I'm being long-winded, but it's very discouraging, and it's real. And so I would say only in the last, I'm going to say between 5 and 10 years, did I hit a smooth rhythm of feeling a sense of mastery over the medium. You know, just feeling like.
But I'll add, playfulness does not wait for mastery.
No, it doesn't.
For you to be able to become playful, it's not like you need to be. When I started snowboarding a long time ago, I remember the first couple of weeks was misery. I was always
That's true. I think anyone learning to snowboard.
My knees were messed up. My wrists were messed up. I was wet. I was cold. I wasn't going anywhere. I just had a face full of snow. I was embarrassing myself. I didn't look cool, you know?
Right.
It sucked. I was not playing. I was struggling, you know? However, I'm gonna say maybe the playfulness is necessary from inception in order to get you through the inevitable sucking of failure. Right? It's the playfulness that pushes you through that, because without that, you're just doing work. You know? You're just doing work.
You do gotta learn to play. I guess that's where practice boards came in for me. I think I let go. So that's why I don't separate the philosophical talk like this from the art. They go hand in hand. This is part of the journey. To be good at my job, I have to dig into these topics, really sort them out. I had to separate myself from my work. I had to separate my identity. Like, what if I lose my hands? You know what I mean? Like, I can't be worthless if I lose my hands. I can't think of myself as worthless if I go through some challenge in life where I can no longer paint. And so I had to separate myself from the results and say, this is a mission to try to understand something, and I'm going to try to have fun and do it. You know, it's very hard. I'll admit that there's a lot of tears and stress involved, but I had to be okay with having a lot of people be better than me, seeing results that I didn't know how to do, and just accepting where I was and making progress from where I was. Just saying, it doesn't look great, but this is where I am. So I'm just going to step by step build to better. You know, maybe today I can't get perfect, but today I can get better.
Yeah, it's like a recipe, you know. Growth is a recipe. You're trying to like cultivate all the right ingredients in the right proportions, you know, so that it creates the kind of outcome you're looking for. It's not all joy. It's not all technique, you know. It's a lot of things. I see what you're up to here.
Yeah.
So Joe is now going through some of my stuff. This is this is what I do when I'm not on Joe's podcast.
Yeah, this is your stuff. Let's see if we can minimize this little window to get this to really.
Yeah, man, get rid of me. I don't want to close my face out.
Yeah, well, I want to be able to get it back.
Hit that little X.
The X, will I be able to get it back here? Let's just make it teensy. There you go.
Oh, there you go.
Teensy. We'll do that, yeah. Because I don't know if I can get it back, and I'm in charge of like the whole show. I already botched it at the beginning. All right.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. So if you look at this, I'll just add a little context because otherwise you're just watching commercials here. But
yeah, so but you created these. You created these.
So I'm the creative. I'm the director, the creator of all this stuff. I worked with a crew, cinematographers, lighting technicians, you know, yada yada, sound people, production designers. But I'm the guy that has to make all the decisions, and I'm the guy that sees the thing. And everybody's like, "Well, what do we do now?" So that's what you're looking at is my body of work. This is the Mural Joe inside my brain. So,
is this going to get adult? Is this going to become adult content?
No, it's all PG. Yeah, I mean, it's a sexy like shampoo conditioner ad, you know?
It's edgy, more sexy than what's on like the daytime TV stuff, you know? Yeah.
But you know, like
I like it.
Talk about refractions of light and rainbows and stuff.
Look at that.
Water. Look, Mural Joe's not the only one that likes water.
But you had, you know, this doesn't just automatically happen by putting the right camera on it. You got to think through how to accomplish this, right?
Yeah, and you know, if you scroll down, you'll see I have an affinity for water too. I've noticed Joe and I, we both like water. You know, liquids.
Yeah. Let me see if we get some audio. We got the audio undone. I want to hear.
Yeah, that's just music. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. All right. We're not watching this. Let's look at some good audio. That's a cool hat.
Yeah, there's some hat stuff.
You said an interesting thing when we were talking that, you know, I think in two-dimensional pixels, as in just 2D space. Think about details in space. You're thinking about details in frames per second and timeline.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's an interesting sort of parallel. You know, these presentations are all being played back to you at, you know, 1/30th of a second. Each still image is 1/30th of a second. So every second that goes by, you're looking at 30 still pictures. And so that's my detail brush. You know, when Joe's in there with a little needly brush, you know, in my brain, I'm thinking, gosh, that's just what it feels like to be in there frame by frame and messing with the most tiny detail. Thank you, Mavis. The golf hats were fun. They were certainly fun.
Yeah, that's a cool one. So tell me about the detail frames per second on something mundane like a cereal commercial.
So what you're looking at right now, this milk was shot in 300 frames per second. So I got out a super detail brush there because it's going to pour so fast. I wanted to capture all that globby shape of liquid detail right here. So I shot it 300 frames every second, you know, and then you got to
that's cool.
Get in there and mess with it. Yeah, the falling things. It's fascinating. The world is really interesting to look at when you shift your perspective of timing. You know, like when you watch things in incredible slow motion, or if you watch things in incredible fast time lapse. The world is so fascinating. We get so anchored to just our perception of time, of real time. You know, there's like some beauty stuff I did. This was okay. You talk about play. This was the most playful job I've ever done that you're looking at here. I had these ballet dancers, and I had this dramatic light, and there's these water effects and everything.
Yeah,
you know, like. Gosh, dude, that sense of play, when we talk about it, it's not just philosophy. It's not just like throwing stuff at the wall. I get a paycheck because people love my sense of play on the job. You know?
Yeah, right. You're saying that you dig into the little details and mechanics of how it works because you need reproducibility so you can get hired. People hire what they like.
when I'm shooting these images, you know, when this you know, the talent or whatever behaves in a certain way, and they move in such a way, and the light catches them in such a way at just the right moment when the camera's framing was just right. Like I exclaim for joy. I like cheer, you know, man. I get so into it. It's so fun, you know.
Yeah, man, I can relate to that. I get that joy out of something going right with the paintbrush. It's like, oh man, I learned this pattern, and then I was able to tell people about it, and then I did it, and it worked. I mean, it is. It's very playful, fun, satisfying. It's a great feeling.
But the point is okay. So yeah, it's playful. However, it's also incredibly problematic, and these presentations, these ads, they don't make themselves. You know, a painting does not paint itself. You have to labor through the problem solving to bring the pieces together. And like I was saying, it's that playfulness. His little comedy spot. It's that playfulness that's going to give you the juice to solve those problems without it just being a bummer to go through all this.
Pretty bad. The chlorine left our hair and skin feeling dry and frizzy. But now that we have a life source water system, my hair and skin feel incredible. Talk about a total game changer. Right, honey?
Makes me want to put it up on my website and show it to people on live streams.
I totally cut you off with the audio. Sorry. I had to hear the audio on that commercial.
Oh, you were, that's
fun. Yeah, you're talking to Camilla. I got that part that you were talking to Camilla, but I drowned you out with the audio on.
Here's a fun one. You know, for this spot here, Joe and I, when we were young, our dad, he painted houses and did a lot of commercial painting. And so he always had air compressors around, big, powerful air compressors. You could use, attach a spray gun to it, right? And just blow out a home exterior or whatever. And so with that little bit of knowledge, see, here's what I'm talking about. Joe and I were these weird artist kids playing with our dad's air compressor and blasting the nozzle into our own mouths because it had so much pressure, it could blow our mouths open.
Yeah.
So here I am, a 43-year-old man, career, and a job is like, hey, can you make it look like this woman is flying down this path on this golf course? And I'm like,
you have to.
I know what to do. I'm gonna get an air compressor and fire it in her mouth.
Yeah, you have to shift gears too. You know, like
Hey, Joe, go back real quick. Shoot, one more time. One more thing I want to show you.
Yeah, let's see it.
Yeah, scroll down a little more.
Scroll down. Okay, we got child eating. That's very fun.
Okay, a little more.
Okay, we got water. Oh, nice. I remember this project.
Hey,
yeah, that's a good one. Nice.
That.
That's good. Let's go full screen on that one. Let's see if it works. Hey, look at that. That's cool. Nice.
So see, I love watching things happen really fast. See, like here, talk about perspective shifting.
Dramatic
This
music.
is all watching Joe way faster than reality, or way slower than reality. And putting those together.
Oh, that was a fun thing.
You know, you just miss all of this fascinating stuff going on.
Yeah.
Anyways,
that's cool. That's a fun video to watch.
This is where all my commentary comes from about lighting and composition and blah blah blah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and it's legit. You know, if we could go back and do that project again, we definitely should have done this part first. We should have done that. We did it backwards. I painted that picture, and then just to show how difficult that was to achieve, you were trying to match up video with the painting.
Yeah, Joe painted the picture first, and they were like, "Where in the world does this scene exist? Let's go there and film it."
That was, I don't know what was in my mind that thought we should do things that way. I don't know how that got through the screening process, but it was like, cool, let's do it.
Jules says another interesting thing here in the chat, saying, I hear you also saying it's so important to keep track of what you learn while playing.
Oh man.
So you can do it again. Yes.
Yeah, repeatability. Yeah, that's very good. Yeah. Very well said. Yeah.
Like what Adam Savage says. I don't know Adam, but Adam Savage says, if you don't write it down, it's just messing around.
Nice.
Yeah. It commits to muscle memory. It commits to your
Yeah.
your mind. But
yeah, that's cool.
definitely.
I think I hear the heart of the matter there.
You're probably never more open to learning and like receptive of learning than when you're in a playful mind state, you know?
Interesting.
You're open, you know, and you're exploring. You
Yeah.
know, by definition, you are being vulnerable to outcomes. You're playing, you know, you're not constricting and protecting, you're opening up and playing. And so, yeah, you're going to be in a better position to learn.
What about, what if it was a little broader than being, what did you say? When you're in a state of play or fun, I forget the word you said, but what if it's excitement, something a little more broad? What if excitement is the key?
Yeah. Hey, paint that picture. I'll be right back.
Okay. Speaking of that, I got to get out of here. All right. So that's fun food for thought. Let's put a mountain in here. I want to put something dramatic because my original idea was it would be fun to have a very simple thing with just like the one, just something to take the imagination back, but then something cool in the middle of it. So let's make a landscape purple. Let's do that. Something that'll be a real good shadow color against light. I'm going to put a little more purple on here so I can mix a bunch of it. Landscape purple. I'm going to add some black to it. I'm going to add some white to it. I got a big pile of that white right here. And so that it's a little on the gray side. And that just seems like a real safe bet for getting shadows. You know, maybe a little blue too. This blue feels a bit on the red side. So whatever purple you've got, you can judge. Okay, landscape purple. Purple shadows, super common. So, you know, I feel like it needs a name. All right, let's see. My instincts always want to put things toward the right. I don't know why this is. I always want to work right to left. Isn't that funny?
You know, I've heard that when a guy walks into a retail establishment, he walks most often to the right, and a woman most often walks to the left, which is why when you go into your favorite center,
there's a convention to it for sure.
Is off to the right, and the women's apparel is off to the left. How fascinating!
I know. I noticed that going in JCPenney and Dillard's at our local mall. I was like, hey, they've got the men and women's section organized the same. I wonder, you know, there must be some kind of a.
I mean, in theory, you know, but
yeah,
weird.
Well, also convention makes things comfortable and easy for people, even if it ended up not being true. Just establishing the convention makes for a easier experience for people coming into the store, right? So I wonder how much is learned and how much is instinct is what I'm saying.
Yeah. How much is learned, how much is instinct? You know, I would say the feelings are instinct. The mechanics are learned. How to express the feelings is learned. But being in touch with the feeling and being sensitive and that lightning rod to what is going to feel or create feeling. You know, I suppose that's the intuitive bit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's an interesting thing, you know. So I have this intuition and I don't know where it comes from, but I write from left to right, you know, it's because I'm trained to write in the English language. Starts at the left, you go to the right. Well, when I do artwork, if I make some kind of a figure, I mean, I can't even tell you how demanding this instinct is. It feels so uncomfortable. I mean, really uncomfortable for me to make a person's face looking to the right. It's so ingrained. And since I've recognized that, I think you would call this an artistic bias. This is a coined term for a long time, but I definitely have it. And I'm so curious about why it exists. I really don't know, but it is a demanding thing. And so I intentionally defy it because I want to expand my abilities, but it's uncomfortable. Like going to the left side instead of the right? Thinking from left to right in art, it's like they're opposite things. When I write a letter, it's left to right, but when I do a picture, it's right to left. And that is such, I just can't say enough how the difference in feeling I get if I draw a portrait looking this way versus a portrait looking this way. You know, they're not equal. So why is that?
Yeah, it is peculiar, dude. You know, like it's kind of the job of me, people that want to do my job. It's the goal to distinguish yourself, to develop that look or that aesthetic that's like the you thing, so that people got to hire you to do the thing. You know, otherwise they just go whoever else is cheapest or fastest, right?
Yeah. Right.
You thing that you do.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's kind of where that comes from. That just, man, I just like to do it that way. I don't know why. It's not that it's right and the other ways are wrong. Other ways work. Other ways are technically advisable. But
so you're saying maybe it's not automatically a bad thing, is what you're saying.
So I'm saying maybe
it's just what makes you.
Yeah, those weird idiosyncrasies or things that like you can't explain for a strategic reason.
Yeah,
those are just the things to embrace, you know.
Yeah.
You know, like a penchant for more saturated colors versus more desaturated looks. You know, like I don't know, they're both great, but there's gravity, man. There's gravity.
Yeah,
gravity is one of these subjects where I'm like, you learn a lot about a thing by looking at it in another thing. And I feel like we gravitate toward an aesthetic. We gravitate toward what we find pleasing, you know? And each object has its own shape, size, matter, therefore its own gravity and its own gravitational pull. So, you know, it's to be honored, that which you gravitate toward, because
all right,
that's your defining behavior, you know.
You know, if I was doing a whole picture with formulas, I teach formulas all day long. You know, that's anytime someone asks, I'm ready to tell you the formula, because of all of those, like we were talking earlier, all of those hours spent analyzing what mechanics are. But then in the end, I'm always falling back on those instinct reactions, that intuition. It's using the formulas as dials, you know, for the intuition, and then using the intuition as dials for the formula. It's like, I suppose now that I'm really trying to articulate it, that it's a back and forth. You know, I use a formula that I know works, but doesn't get that it factor, you know. And then I use my intuition, and then my intuition makes an error. And then I go back to a formula and I find the error that my intuition had. You know, it's like we can't deny one or the other.
Well, it's almost interesting like you rely on your formula to get you going, and then you rely on your intuition to recognize when it's working, you know, and to like steer you. Your formulas and your techniques, those are going to kind of keep you on the map, on the road, in the game. But then
that's a good way to say that.
Your intuition, and you're throwing things around, and you're failing, frankly, and surprising yourself. That's going to bring to light surprising opportunities and really extraordinary outcomes, you know.
That's
like
interesting.
When something magical just happened, you know. Like, for example, that shower spot, right, that you just showed everybody, where there are these people taking showers, and there's all this light getting refracted around, and all these, you know, interesting shapes of water and drips and prisms. Well, I didn't just say, all right, record. Okay, cue the light prism, cue the water shape. All right, cut. You know, it's not how it goes. You're in there and you're like, all right, turn the water on, splash around. All right, now roll through all this, you know, like find that light. And there's just like, you're in there just splashing around, and you're just trying stuff, and you're doing all the things you know you need to do in order to facilitate the kind of outcomes you're hoping for. But you don't know when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. You're just trying to create an environment where these things often happen. You know, water will often take really fascinating shape. Light will often refract in really beautiful ways. If you use this lens, that angle, this talent, that light, this action, right? You put all the pieces together, and then you get a lot of failures in that. There's a lot of footage in there that sucks, that's not usable. But intuition recognizes when a magic moment occurred, when it did. When the crazy thing did grow out of that little incubating environment where you put that all together and said, now play. You know?
Now that happens. And I think most artists, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all, most artists stop and say, let's not interfere with that magic. And that's where I find myself taking a bit of a different path because of where my passion is, where I'm like, oh, I'm only going to let it live if I can repeat it. You know, like I stubbornly pursue repeatability. And so I will destroy some of the most happy accidents that I've ever seen, just because if I can't do it again, if I can't do it again, I'm not interested. You know? The truth is, I do love the beauty. I really love it. I think that's like the key component of it.
You will learn why it happened, and you will be able to more accurately make it happen again every time you do that. You know, if you have the courage to rip up some beautiful accident and then recreate the circumstances, you know, that's science.
I mean, that's an approach. That's what all of my progress as a muralist, as a career muralist, I mean, that's what it's been built on, is experiment after experiment. And I'm not making that up. You know, that really is it. It's just relentlessly going through those practice boards, finding the repeatable pattern, and instead of settling for that intuitive, beautiful result that happened after I played with it for a while. That does happen, and that is great. That, you know, I don't want to discount the validity of that. And so it has its place, like on this show, playing, having fun. So, you know, it happens, you know, that I suppose it has its place where it's important. But my path was relentlessly looking for that repeatable pattern. You know, I want people to know that because I wouldn't miss a beat if you were to ask how to get better. I would say practice boards,
reps.
Reps. That's what I would do. You know, it's like it's the part where there's moments when you do it for fun. There's moments when you do it to get better. So those reps.
That speaks to something Tom is saying here in the chat. He's saying, is it a learned thing or an internal instinct? And I would say it's not mutually exclusive.
I would go with both on that one for sure.
You know, you absolutely can learn to be like I was saying, you can learn how to create an environment out of which miraculous and beautiful things happen. You know, you can learn that. You can learn to drink your coffee, put up your canvas, mix your paints, play your music, get your head right, feel some feelings, be inspired. You can learn all that. But what's going to really catapult you from technically impressive to how did you do that, or why would anyone where did that come from, right? How you're going to get that level is when you couple that discipline that you've learned with that intuition and that sensitivity and that
it's the back and forth.
That courage to throw stuff around and play and recognize, whoa, that was a massive failure, but hey, that was awesome. Let me maybe on that, you know.
Maybe it's important to appreciate that. Maybe maybe when there's insecurity involved, it's hard to appreciate that process because it gets mistaken as failure.
Oh, dude, fear.
Yeah.
Okay. Fear will destroy your ability to do anything good. I work at this production company, right? We do a lot of work, a high volume of work.
Yeah.
And there are certain individuals in this line of work that are very concerned with approval. So is client going to approve of this work? Like, Ben, yeah, I know you want to make this shower thing this way, but like, gosh, man, they're not going to like it. This is not their brand. This is not what they're trying to say. It's too sexy, or it's too wet. Yeah, it's too wet.
Yeah.
And that fear of it's not gonna be good enough.
It's
will just
paralyzing,
cripple your ability to do anything.
Yeah, man, that's true. Yeah. So how do you get past that? I guess
it takes courage. It takes that openness to go fail and
yeah. I heard a good, it's funny when you end up remembering good quotes from like kids' cartoon movies, but sometimes simple cliche things are cliches because they're so true. That it was that dinosaur movie, man, you know which one I'm talking about? Like it's this little long necked dinosaur that has to get back to his parents and these T-Rexes help him, and it's all in like the animated style. Anyway,
I'm sure someone here knows what movie you're talking
about. Yeah. So this big scary T-Rex is telling this scary story, and he's like, "You're not afraid of anything," and he says, "What? Everybody has fear." I'm misquoting it, but it's the gist of it. Everybody has fear. Courage is figuring out how to get through it. It's not feeling the fear. It's getting through it. And I think that's a really good distinction, because then it takes the shame out of feeling afraid. You're like, yeah, I feel afraid, but there's a way to continue to function while I'm afraid.
That's true. I would say the phrase being fearless is doing a lot of damage. I'm not sure that too many things are actually fearless. I don't know that any one is actually fearless. There's just people that have managed their fear.
Right. I'm experiencing making this picture worse at the moment. I would say it's not getting better. It's getting worse at this point. And it's because it's that same pattern. It's because I'm okay with that. But I added extra.
Moment, guys, here's the moment we're talking about.
Yeah, I just think it's worth stopping and talking about, because if you rewind the video, these mountains looked their best when I first applied those accents and imagination kind of filled in the blanks. The more I worked it with my brush, the more it became artificial looking, and I'm seeing that real clear. But I take joy in seeing it happen and analyzing it. Like, oh, okay, there's this thing that happens. So the next question is, why does it look so much better at that first application of the highlights, where as I apply it more and more, it starts to look manufactured? What's changing? I want to find that point where it's changing and learn to master it. And I just take joy in that. I just take joy in that process.
One is the courage to begin, the courage to fail. Two is the sensitivity to the feeling of failure. And why did you fail? Where did it fail? Right? You can't do that without being sensitive to your work.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Brush says, don't be afraid, Joe.
Don't be afraid. Thank you. Don't be afraid.
You gotta be sensitive to the work. That's number two.
Yeah.
And then three is, the skill set to untangle what you've tangled, where you failed, and then, make it work, as Tim Gunn says.
Yeah. It's true, and then the ability to settle. Nobody likes to settle for second best, but I'm telling you, I do it all the time. And because at the end of the day, I have to have enough humility to say I have not arrived at the top of the mountain of mastery.
No.
See what I did there?
That was nice. That was really nice.
Yeah. I haven't arrived there, and I just need to admit it.
Will you ever, Joe, arrive at the top of the mountain of mastery?
Well, come on. I mean,
because it's relative, bro. And joy is in the work.
Yeah, I like to imagine that one day I will, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's more realistic. I think it's a better approach, just as you said, to just accept your state as ever incomplete, because that is what makes the fun. That, like, there's nothing to pursue if you are that proud person that's at the top. Have you ever talked to somebody that could not be improved? Have you ever talked to an annoying person that there was no room for improvement because they already had the best?
I typically don't really find that too interesting, but yeah.
Man, it's abundant though. Pride is the magic ingredient there. I have a friend. I'm not naming anybody. I have a friend that thought it to be what's the right way to say it? He hired someone who was on the street, living on the street, and they were in a tough spot, but they seemed capable of doing the job. And so suddenly this person that was on the street was hired into a corporate position with a good paycheck. And not to insult the person, but they were having a lot of conflict in the office. And they did self-evaluation tests, and this person that was having a lot of conflict evaluated his self at like 100% perfect on every category. And then there was the problem that exposed the problem. He had to let him go. He couldn't. He was unusable at that point because there was no room for improvement.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's like, on the one hand, you're admitting that you are less than you hoped you are.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you're accepting that. And when you can both, confess your sins and accept that you are deficient, then and only then are you useful in any way.
That's it. Yeah. You gotta accept your state of being just good enough for the job. You got to be okay with that. I'm good enough. Someone was gracious to hire me. I'm good enough for the job. And I'm going to accept that and do it.
Or, what I do is, just reframe it from that. And like, instead of thinking to myself, okay, how do I be good enough? How do I be good enough? I think to myself, how do I take advantage of this opportunity?
Okay.
But see, I'm just the opposite. I'm exactly the opposite of what you described. I'm bent on growth. I'm hell bent on growth. Like, it's what I'll do until the day I die.
Yeah. So you're saying that you aggressively embrace the I'm not there at the top of the mountain. Is that what you're saying?
So it's Round Brush says something here. Constantly doubting your work is a good way to improve in a way. If you think you're at your peak, you'll stop trying as much. And I guess I've just embraced this sort of like I'm messy. There's a lot I could improve on. And so I'll spend the rest of my life about that, because it's that expansion that is so exciting. And that refinement that, gives you something to do in life. If you've arrived already, then what's the joy in life?
Yeah. But then how much sense does it make to be protected when you get criticism? Like, this is our instinct. And to me, sounds like a bit of a hypocritical thing to, when someone comes to criticize your work, you're like, what? You don't know what you're talking about. The defensiveness. Instead of your first reaction being, oh, I wonder if this is one of those things that needs improvement. The instinctive reaction is protection, because it hurts. It definitely hurts,
Yeah, Tom is saying, self-evaluation can be tough, but you got to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And that's not just life. That's not just art lessons. That's life lessons, man.
Sure. Yeah. But if you don't take time to remind yourself these things, then this can cause huge failures in your like something as simple as a painting for someone. I think if you're ignoring these things as important topics, then it can be mystifying. Why did I fail so bad? How come I can't finish that picture? And I think this is the kind of topic that digs into why that stuff happens.
So Camila said something a minute ago that I wanted to touch on,
yeah, let's hear it.
Said that, how do you keep the fun part when painting is also your everyday job?
Yeah.
Is that why you do this podcast, this video thing?
Yes. Yes. That's a yes for me.
It's romantic and fluffy to be like, oh yeah, joy will keep you aloft through all of your hardships. And it's like,
no, I think everyone experiences the mundane. Yeah, I'm doing it again. Nothing new here.
I would say, to answer the question directly, like, how do you keep the fun part while painting is your everyday job? You must keep the fun part. Otherwise,
survival
down.
Yeah. You're talking about survival.
It's not an option. It's not like, how do you keep the fun part? It's like you start with the fun part,
Yeah. Now that's interesting.
The fun in what you're doing, you are not going to continue creating.
Yeah. You know what I do to keep things? One thing that I do to keep my day-to-day fun is have enough things going on at the same time that I can hop between them and keep my mind entertained. So if I get fixated on one piece of the mural, then I start slowing down. Like this, I probably spent longer than I should have because I felt like I was trying to figure it out. But for example, I get fixated on that, and then fixation causes fatigue and I get exhausted. Next thing I know, I'm putting a stroke on, and the time in between strokes is getting longer and longer. I'm looking, I'm thinking, I'm putting a stroke, and it slows way down to this pace. Is that one right? Is that one right? You're at a snail pace at that point because the fun has gone. You don't have that energy. So I keep multiple things going. I'm like, well, I'm losing momentum on that at the moment. So let's jump over here. So that's just kind of a mechanical.
Yeah, that's practical.
Approach.
I also do that. Like there's different elements of my job. Some of it is this task, some is that task. If a certain task is just horrible, you're doing a task and you're like, oh, right. You can jump over to a different sort of a task that will be fun. Like, I don't enjoy organizing footage at all. I do enjoy color grading footage, So like, if I'm just in this drudgery of organization and media management, well, then I can just go over and color grade some things for a little bit and then remind myself, oh, you love this. You love this craft, So like, stepping out and getting that bigger picture, it's important. It's very helpful for me to pull out often from the details. Ooh, dude, nice nuclear explosion out there on the horizon.
That's a good interpretation.
Pull out of the details and just remember, why am I even doing this? Like, how did I even get here? Like, what matters to me that planted me in this place and time with this life doing these things? And then when I reattach to like my values and what I care about deeply, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I came to this city. I left my friends and my family behind. I'm childless because, I want to be immersed in this creative industry without anything stopping it. And so then I stop and think, oh, well, while this editing sucks, or, I'm on day 5 of a 5-day shoot and I'm underslept and I smell bad and I haven't shaved, it's like, oh, you love this. That's right. Yeah, you do love this. You find a little part that you love, you go watch the sunrise over your film set, sure.
Yourself,
gosh, man,
there is something about,
I sure do love stuff about this, then the other parts, they obviously suck,
Yeah, you gotta get through those, but that mindset is so valuable. That mindset can be that little tool that gives you just enough to get to the other side of that dark time, you know.
Or, you know, if you're like, well, if it's not a creative job, it's like, well, I got to go, you know, pack these boxes because I got this family that I just love to feed. I love to see the look on my kids' faces when they get a mouthful of spaghetti, you know.
Yeah.
That's how you reintroduce joy into a labor, you know. You remind yourself why you are laboring, and those things are where the joy comes from, you know.
Yeah. You know, on a little bit of a subject shift, but, you know, it's a very practical thing. I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but something that I've practiced and really been surprised at the result is saying thank you. You know, the old term counting your blessings? The practice of voicing a thank you, like in my alone, quiet time, using my voice, you know, specifically saying it out loud. Thank you. Thank you, God, for my family, for my wife that loves me. So then I go down the list. Thank you. So voicing a thank you for all the things that don't suck. Because if you do an honest comparison, there's always somebody that's got it a lot worse. And it kind of forces you to come to a reckoning. It forces it. It's like a psychological forcing your hand to either admit that you're an entitled brat or you've got a lot to be thankful for. It's one or the other. It forces your hand. And most of us don't really love the feelings of admitting that we're an entitled person, you know, like I was born, therefore I deserve stuff.
Yeah.
And
right.
You know, so that process of saying thank you, I've really found to be a rapid mindset changer. You know, just an opinion to throw out there.
Well, no, I mean that's you can observe how blood pressure drops when you meditate on gratitude. You know.
Yeah, right. That's probably something studied pretty
like
well.
there are real physiological benefits. A human is observably better off when they're focused on what they are thankful for.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, that's what we were talking about, going from obligation to opportunity. You know, every time you step up to your canvas, you think, oh gosh, I gotta fix this. Look at this problem.
Look at
man, look at failure just waiting. It's not good enough. Like, gosh, it's not even half as good as Mural Joe. And like, you know, he's talking about how it's a struggle. How much more a struggle is it for me? Oh man. Right.
Yeah.
You're just like,
that's a result focused mindset is what that is. It's needing a particular result in order to be happy.
Yeah, you're just stuck with this sense of like obligation, you know. But if you flip it and you're like, oh my goodness, I have 2 arms, I have 10 fingers, I have health, I have food, shelter, life, feelings, opportunity to paint, you know, like to connect. Wow, what a great opportunity. Oh my goodness, give me some colors, give me some, you know.
Yeah. I think there was a point in my life when I realized what makes me important is not the results of my work. My people don't invite me over to their house because I can paint this picture. You know, like, hey,
exactly.
Hey, you're a good painter. Well, you want to come to my barbecue? That's not the way things work. You know, friendship is built on interests in each other. That's it. You know, you're like, and so my identity is definitely not. I would just say much less threatened by the idea that I'm just somewhere in the middle of everything's skill. You know, there's people better, there's people worse, and it just doesn't matter. You know, I don't need to be any particular status anymore, and that's been so liberating. It's really given me a lot of energy.
It really doesn't matter. That's not just something you're telling yourself so that you can accept your insignificance, or something you're telling yourself so that you can accept your inability to perform. No, it really just doesn't matter.
It really, it's hard to prove why it does matter. You'd be hard pressed to come up with a counter argument.
Yeah. Do you owe the world a beautiful, masterful painting? You know? And also, like, if you do a masterful painting, like what difference is that going to make? There's no knowable difference. There's no impact. There's no obligation, you know, like you're not the chosen one who's supposed to step up to this bar, and if you miss it, you failed the world, you know, like, it doesn't matter. You're under no obligation to do anything or be anything, you know, like,
agreed.
Life happened, and here you are, this little bubble of it. And before your bubble pops, you get to be here and look out through your little clear dome at all the other life. And
well, let's not make it too unromantic. Wow.
You know, like, there's just really no point to beating yourself up about your ability or where you're at on your own adventure curve or learning curve. You know, it's
that's where I'm at. Is there's no sense in beating yourself up. There's not, because you know, when, not to get dark, but when your life is over, it's not your paintings that people are going to be sad about missing. It's your presence. You know, it's being there.
Someone has said it, not me, but I love it. And so I'll say it here. When you're gone, people are not going to remember what you did or what you said. They're going to remember how you made them feel.
Oh yeah, I think that's very good. Yeah, that's a good way to say that.
Like, there's no achievement that you're going to be able, because here's the reason why. Any achievement you do is going to be unremarkable as soon as someone overachieves it.
Yeah, right. It's a matter of when.
You do is going to look inferior as soon as someone does a more masterful one.
Yeah, you know? They're like, oh, I see what you did.
Record time you can sprint around a track is going to get out sprinted by someone else, or it won't, and you'll just get forgotten because who cares about sprinting anymore?
Yeah, once that event's over. Yeah,
like, it just doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah.
So therefore, kill it with the outcomes focus, and embrace the learning and the nowness of it, you know.
Yeah.
Like Joe is right now, he's delighting. I can promise you, Joe is delighting in connecting the highlight on the right side of that mountain to the light source of a similar color emitting from the right. He's joyfully connecting.
It is a pretty fun process. Yeah.
And it's just,
trying to get this
just doesn't matter if it ever happens or if it doesn't happen, or if it happens right or wrong, or if all of you go away, or if you quadruple in numbers. Like, who cares? Joe's having fun.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, there's some balance, right? There's some balance in the fun versus the results. Like, there's an amount of results people need in order to make it fun. But I'm, you know, I suppose where I stand on it is train myself to enjoy the little wins, the very small ones. Train myself. It doesn't happen naturally, but you can train yourself to appreciate and enjoy the little victories, and aim for things that are reachable. You know, like I want to aim for things like I can't master this thing overnight, but I can go that direction by, if I can achieve this one little thing, I'll at least know that I'm going that direction. You know. That's kind of where I try to hit the balance.
You know, Tommy puts it this way. He says, impression left behind. And that's what I'm talking about, man, is it doesn't matter the shape of whatever you do, the painting you make, the life you live. It doesn't necessarily matter, because it's the impression you leave on people. That's what's really important.
We're bringing it back around to the beginning of the video. That's clever.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice work.
That's what I was trying to say is, you know, we are all just an impression being made on life by life itself, which made us, you know. And there's this real just freedom in knowing that you're a particular kind of a person with a particular kind of makeup and life experiences and DNA and all this stuff, and you are going to make an impression on the world, on the people next to you. You're making an impression by what you consume, by what you say, right? You make an impression everywhere. You cannot be alive without making an impression.
Right.
And it's that making of the impression that is the best part. Cultivating your ability
Yeah.
to make that impression, and focusing what kind of impression do you want to make.
I think sometimes people lose hope that they make any difference at all. You know, like they don't have that sense of, if I say hello to this person, it's going to have an effect on their day. And so if you see yourself as someone that doesn't count, I think you start behaving I'll just say behaving differently. It changes. But if you truly believe, and I'll tell you, I truly am convinced that every little smile you make to someone else is a game changer. Or I think it has, eternal results. And so when you see yourself as a difference maker, I think it really motivates you to more satisfying, joyful life, like more dignified. I think bad habits start to disappear. I think you start getting energy to improve things that need improving. I think it gives you all kinds of energy that's needed by understanding that you make a difference to others, that you count.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nanette has a lovely practical question for you here to ground us. Joe,
let's hear it.
Are you using a reference, or are you painting from your head?
Oh, just painting some that it's from my mind, painting from my my imagination in my mind.
He's painting from the library of observations he's made while staring intently at clouds and sun and mountains.
But I did get inspired by that movie scene where the dinosaur throws the little boy up and he goes above the cloud layer, and there's like these flat clouds and a mountain in the sun. I totally borrowed the concept, but other than that, painting from my mind, because I don't have a reference at the moment. There's a way to learn these patterns so that you can produce them when you want to. That's the joy in painting for me is definitely working from imagination. It's definitely using the patterns I've learned to paint a scene. So I'll see a sunset, and then a week later I'll get around to having time to try to paint it, because the ingredients of the sunset I understand very quickly when I look at it, because they're all patterns that I've had plenty of years and time to observe and learn. So I'm pre-answering questions that I hear a lot, like the mechanics of working from imagination to develop a somewhat realistic impression.
Yeah. Hey, welcome America to the party late. Good to have you here again. Also, Roundbrush is saying, what if ...
What if? Let's hear it.
Were a volcano?
Oh, that'd be cool. Okay, how do we make it a volcano? What do you think?
Hey, you know what's funny is when he typed that, my response was, ooh.
Just like that's totally said, man. Where are we, brothers, or what? Now people have a. I totally put the audio.
Exploding lava?
Dude, that sounds pretty neat. Huh. Not against that idea.
Yeah.
How much time do we got? How are we doing on time? We started at 7:15. We're at 7:20. We're out of time. Yeah. Feels like we've gone for a while. Well, the lava idea we'll have to wait because we're out of time. But I can throw in this cloud as a last thing.
The destination. It is not the finished painting full of lava and magnificent details that matters, you guys. It is the fact that we showed up and we played and we enjoyed our lives while they are still happening. That's it.
Well said. Well said. That's kind of where we landed, Now we're going to wake up tomorrow and we're going to say, we were so full of baloney. What was that even about?
Be like, what a bunch of flowery rainbow nonsense.
What in the world are we doing? That's the way it goes. We're just kind of swimming in the fun of it.
Yeah, man, what is every day if not just swimming, floating down the white water rapids?
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
Dude, I just made a cloud over a ground of clouds. I mean, we got layers of cloud. I'm just realizing,
Bro, you got cumulus clouds, you got cumulonimbus, you got stratus.
We got a big paint booger on there. You got cloud names. Wow, you've been working on your knowledge of cloud anatomy.
Hey, this was a valuable thing. Jules says this conversation is why AI will never replace real artists.
Ah, amen. Well said. I wholeheartedly,
yeah, Jules,
wholeheartedly get on board with that. Yeah, yes, I like that, and that's that's a positive note.
We are hurting. We are
hurting.
Impressionable. Yeah. We are curious. We are desperate. We're hungry. We're passionate.
Yeah. That's what's missing. Yeah, that's what's missing in that whole AI phenomenon is that desperation, that hungry, broken desperation.
Yeah,
and it really puts value on it.
What am I gonna do? AI doesn't feel that way, like
no, it's all logic. It's all logic.
I have to do, I have to be, I have to define my existence. What is going on?
When it's used in this way, it's kind of gross when it simulates that meaning logically. It uses logic to simulate that emotional meaning, and you're like, duh.
Camila's like, that's a desperate looking cloud.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, it's reaching up. It is. It's desperate for its place in the sky. It's trying to break away from the rest. Do you see? See what I'm doing here? This cloud is trying to break away from the main current.
That's it.
It's like, I need something.
Cloud, the weird one.
Something more. I need something more.
That's the weird one.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think this was a fun experiment. It was just for me, this was really nothing more than just something that's easy on the eyes, fun to look at, some content while we jibber jabber. And this.
You've reached out and you've touched the days of people as far as Romania today.
Whoa! Wow, that's cool. That's cool. Well, if anyone's looking for a more practical knowledge on how to paint clouds, like if you like what you see and you want to know more about it, then let me just point you to the many videos on painting clouds. There's nothing new here in this painting, and I've gone into great depth in other videos. So if you haven't already, take a look at those and get a lot more detailed conversation about how to build a lifelike looking cloud.
Yeah, before we go, I'm going to do one more thing here, Joe. I want to show you something that was submitted.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to see that. All right, here's the last little touch. We're putting purple. We're going to get some very glowy orange light hitting blue light. We get a purple. There we go. Makes that very illuminated back there.
If you guys want to take the next 20 seconds and throw anything you're working on in the link that's in the description of this video, go right ahead. We're going to look at it right now.
Let's check it out. What do we got? You're going to screen
we
share?
We got something that Camila submitted here.
Let's see what Camila's been working on.
So she's working on a little video here.
Hey, all right, cool. Hey, let me see if I can do a full screen, get us a little bit bigger look. You do a full screen, and then I'll do a full screen also.
Check this out. It's like there's like a bathroom in there. We got like a camping scene.
Nice. Wow, that's an awesome looking space. Cool. Wow, I like the design, geometric patterns with the organics. That's cool. Nice combo. Nice combination of. Or are those tiles? Are those real tiles? I was thinking they were painted. Yeah. Okay, you got the tree branches coming up over the top. I think those are real tile.
It's like an indoor shower, an indoor bathroom.
Okay. You got to see it. Yeah, that looks really neat. I like that. Yeah. That's very pleasant shower to walk into.
Yeah, man. Cool.
I like it a lot. I would take that over.
Real tiles. Those are real tiles.
Yeah, real tiles. I would take that. even the simplest version of tree branches in nature, I think is so much more enjoyable than a white wall. You know, that really makes that space look good. And I like the sky gradient there. That adds a 3D look to it. It's got the blue to white, makes it go back beyond that tile. Nice work, Camilla. Thanks for sharing that. That's beautiful.
Thanks, Camilla.
That's cool. Is that it for today, or we got more?
That's what we got.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna do this again next week. We don't have plans to cancel that one. We shifted to an earlier time. We're gonna try to hit the 7 o'clock mark regularly, right?
Yep.
Right there, brother.
Same time next week.
Okay. All right. That's it. We're out of here.
Appreciate you guys. It's fun to share this hour and a half or so with you. Thanks for the chat. Enjoy your days.
And